All right. All right. The Monday, August 28th, 2023 meeting of the Marquette City Commission is now called to order at 6 p.m. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. City Clerk, if I could get a roll call, please.
Commissioner Hanley,
Here.
Commissioner Larson,
Here.
Commissioner Ottaway,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Here.
and Mayor.
Here. All commissioners are present. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion on the agenda? Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
I move we approve the agenda with the addition under new business, a resolution to establish a polling location for early voting. And that's it.
Thank you. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 The amended agenda passes 7-0. Announcements, I have none for this evening. It brings us to public comment. Public comment may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please clearly state your name and physical address when giving public comment, and feel free to approach the center podium.
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. Tonight, I've invited members of my class in Introduction to Business Law to join us at this meeting. During this week, the first week of classes, we'll be studying different systems of law, the U.S. Constitution, federal law. I thought it was a great opportunity for them to see local lawmaking, and also to connect with members of the commission who have an opportunity during commissioner comment to share whatever you would like to share with the students about your connections with Northern, because this is new to them. I've been told that they have not been encouraged to come to these meetings before, so you have a chance to make a great first impression on them. My goal for the meeting is very simple. I want them to see what I see every 2 weeks and know that these meetings happen in every jurisdiction, wherever they end up living, wherever they end up working. There's a commission, there's a budget, there's issues on the, tonight's, it's a used fire truck. We all know we've had more complicated agendas, but the purchase of a used fire truck is very serious for a town of this size. So I thought it was a good opportunity for you to meet them and for them to meet you, and also for them to get away from campus and to come out into the real world where their money is being spent wisely. So that's why they're here, and I wish them luck. To get extra credit, they have to come to the podium and introduce themselves. So please be patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
My name's Peyton Miller. My address is 1910 Sugarloaf Avenue, apartment 32. And I just have a couple quick questions. I'm here as my professor's student. First of all, do minutes and bills payable ever not pass? And if they don't, do you guys have an example or what that looks like, or is it more of a formality? And I'm also curious of how you would describe the role of commissioner. I think that the other roles are a little more self-explanatory, but I'm not familiar with the commissioner role. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Josie Downs, 104 Riverland Drive. I am a student and I'm just here to observe, and I'm excited to learn more about the city.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
My name is Josie Beach, and I live at 1405 Lincoln Avenue, apartment 1. And I'm mostly here to observe, but my boyfriend and I have noticed that our water quality has changed a little bit, and I'm just wondering who I would bring that up to. That's all from me.
My
My name is Nina Novak. I live in 207 Birch East Hall, Marquette, and I'm just here to observe. Thank you.
My name is Rina Rexay. I live at Spooner Hall on campus and at Northern Michigan, and I'm just here to observe.
Hi, my name is Emmeline Walsh. I live at Northern and Hunt Hall, and I'm just here to observe.
Hi, I'm Toby Stiles. I live on 416 Maple East Marquette at NMU. I'm just here to learn and observe and know how the process works. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Alex Gregg. I live at 1701 Presque Isle Avenue. I'm just here to observe and see how tonight goes.
Hi, my name is Leah Gooden. I live at 2071 Wilkinson Avenue, and I'm here for extra credit as well as a question about the Marquette Plaza Skate Park and how their trash cans get removed quite frequently, and they're not there for momentarily long times. There's no place for us to put our trash, and then there's community feedback and trash around the skate park. So I was wondering where the trash cans go every once in a while.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Seeing none, public comment's now closed. That brings us to our first and only presentation for the evening, which is by the Board of Zoning Appeals by Chair Heather Dombrowski.
Hello. As stated, I'm Heather Dombrowski. I'm the current chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I'm doing the presentation about 2022 because a lot of numbers confuse me, and that's a long time ago now. But so I'll start off with our Board of Zoning Appeals. As stated before, I'm the current chair, although this is my second term, and I have served before when I was on the Planning Commission. And right now we have myself, Christina, George, who's come back again, Barbara, Nathan, who's a part of the Planning Commission, and then Brad Newman is serving, although his term has expired, but he has agreed to stay on. And we have 3 vacant positions at this point, and it causes a real problem. In this last summer, we had people that were off, and I ended up with COVID, and the meeting had to be canceled because there wasn't enough people to attend the meeting, and that really helps to have all the vacancies filled, so something like that doesn't delay homeowners when they're trying to get something done, or business owners too. So, and in 2022, there were 12 scheduled meetings, and there were 9 canceled due to no requests. And a lot of this comes from the Land Development Code. A lot of things are held, helped by the Land Development Code and working with the city there. The meetings are held the first Thursday of the month. Additional meetings can be scheduled at times. There were 2 excused absences. In the most part, alternates have been able to come, but all meetings were conducted with at least 7 or less members throughout that year. And there was 1 unexcused in 2022. So what the BZA does, it's per the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act of 2006, PA 110 of 2006, section 125.3601, a zoning ordinance shall create a zoning board of appeals. Then the section 54.1304 of the City Marquette Land Development Code establishes the BZA. Responsibilities are official interpretations of the Land Development Code text and map. That's what we use in a lot of the cases that we have, and what we're using in the discourse and talking about the different variances and things that come up. Appeals of administrative orders, requirements, decisions, and determinations, which has happened, not sure if it was in 2022, but occasionally that happens too. Variances from the Land Development code standards, and then designation of Class A non-conforming uses or structures, so changing. But you'll see most of what we see are variances. So somebody's trying to do something outside of the land development code. And we will have Class A non-conforming designation. I think some of these happened in 2023, appeals of administrative decisions, administrative reviews, and those kind of things. So most of that. And so goals for the next year, pursue more educational opportunities and fill vacancies on the board. And that's kind of what we wanted to talk to you guys about too. I think that there is, and I saw the board before you came, all the vacancies on the board. I think that people don't know that there are boards that they can serve on. And I feel like we need to get new avenues to get people in. The Michigan State Extension Office does offer training for people who are doing like Board of Zoning appeals and other things. And I feel like if we educated the public more on what these commissions serve, you know, how often you be doing, and kind of set the expectation that you don't have to be an engineer, you don't have to be a builder, you can be from all walks of life. And that's really what all these committees are looking for. And something we talked about before was maybe having a spot on a TV6 morning show where we're just talking often about the different boards of vacancies, you know, in the city, townships, you know, all around, just what it is and what it entails, so that people know that it's available in spots that they can fill, because they do serve a very important part of our community, and I think people just don't know that that's available to them. The other thing is a stipend. A lot of times we're driving around, same as Planning Commission, you're driving quite a bit. Sometimes the case packets are quite big, and it might be an incentive to have people join the board, because that's not a paid position or reimbursement for mileage too. And we've talked about going to service clubs, you know, like other places like that, or working with Northern Michigan University, just to try and get in more people and get more people engaged in our community. So that's all I had. Yes. Any questions?
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you for the presentation and for your, volunteer efforts. What would you say is something that is, rewarding or valuable in the experience you've had that might help us as we're talking to people about opportunities?
For me, it's directly affecting the community right around me. I can see the things getting made. I can see the home that goes from, kind of a dilapidated thing to, a rebuilt nice home because they can build, to where they need to. I can see that families can stay in a home because they have wheelchair access now into their house, that would be encroaching on the front limits, and I can see the changes, with businesses, trying to get into an area, maybe it's height or maybe it's those things. And that's the direct impact that I see. And it's been, I really like, and another selling point for the BZA is that it's a quasi-judicial board. So because of that, there's not a lot of extra talk. It's a very factual meeting, and so the meetings are generally a little bit more concise than other boards you've served, possibly have served on before, which is a selling point for me. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Larson?
I don't have a question, but having served on the BZA for a couple of sessions as part of the Planning Commission, I can certainly see that the benefit of it, and I really enjoyed my time on it. And as you said, it's quasi-judicial. It's statutorily required that we have the BZA and the Planning Commission, and so you kind of go hand in hand. So I think having the opportunity to see how the code works and what the limitations of that code are, because what you may end up having then is to report back to the Planning Commission and say, hey, you know what, the code's not really working, and it can change. So it's part of that living document. So certainly thank you for continuing to serve, and the others that have been on the board for a very long time. I think it's certainly a challenge to bring folks on, but with a change in plan, having fewer meetings, that's probably a welcome change to what we've had in the past. So, appreciate that.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Heather, thank you so much for being here. You've been not only on the BZA, obviously, for a long time, but a big part of the Planning Commission, everything else. As somebody who's given this presentation before, I think one of the things all of these commissioners behind me, as well as myself, know is always the biggest ask from the BZA is getting people. And I can say that, especially to our friends from NMU here, if there's any board that is important to be on, it is probably this one. One, because, well, as she said, it's quasi judicial. It's a requirement by law that we have to have enough people to actually serve this meeting. But the second important reason, while if you're looking to do anything in your community, this is a good board to be on. The commitment isn't much. So they had, what, 2 meetings last year?
And yeah.
Yeah, so because of how our land development code has changed and the things that our planning commission has done to really change things and make it more user-friendly for the people living in the city, there isn't much of an ask there, but it's still an important ask. So if you're looking to do anything in the city, get with her, and then get with us, and we can see if we can appoint you to this committee for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Heather.
Sure, definitely.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Heather, thank you. Perhaps you only had 2 meetings last year, but I recognize the importance of this particular board, and I was just a little surprised and really appreciate the dedication if you're driving around and looking at each of these sites. I was not aware of that, so thank you very much, and thank your board for taking that much of a commitment to your decisions. Your idea of going to service clubs is a very good one. I'd be happy to invite you to a service club that I am part of, and so we can talk about that later.
That sounds great. That'd be great.
Commissioner Stonehouse.
No questions, but certainly just some accolades, I think, for the very fine work that you do. And it is appropriate tonight that the students are in the audience to get a different perspective of city government, how city government operates, and some of the critical roles that appear under the radar. And certainly the BZA is often an under the radar board that we have, only one of 2 that are really legislative in nature, the other being the Planning Commission. And the dedication of the people that serve on these committees, particularly, again, the BZA in this instance, is really awe-inspiring because of the way they can impact and affect the community for good or for bad. And we are very blessed that we do have one that is very forward-thinking and able to rationalize out what is the best steps to take in each of the situations they are faced with. So thank you very much for what you do, and please pass on, I think I can speak for the mayor, all of the accolades from the City Commission for the good work done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, definitely.
Really appreciate it.
And I just want to recognize too, the city staff is amazingly helpful. And I think that's a lot of the reason why we only have 2 meetings is staff works with homeowners, works with businesses, and then works with our commission also. So you're not on your own when you're on these commissions too. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion for consent? Commissioner Hanley.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. And do we have a second for that? Commissioner Ottaway?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Not at all.
Okay. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, that brings us to new business item number 3, which is the purchase of a used fire truck. City Clerk, if we could get the background, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Due to catastrophic deterioration over the past 2 years, the City of Marquette has permanently decommissioned the 2 2004 Pierce Arrow XT pumper fire trucks that comprise the majority of the daily fire department operations. A new Pierce Velocity pumper was ordered for $829,080.61 in April of 2022, but delivery of this truck is still not anticipated until late 2024. In order to maintain public safety, a 1999 Pierce Sabre pumper was purchased in 2022 to assist with operations, but the lack of a second pumper truck has led to high usage of the 1996 Pierce-Quint ladder truck, a vital truck that is significantly more expensive and difficult to replace. A replacement pumper candidate was identified in Miami, Florida for $48,000, and the purchase was approved by the City Commission at the November 28, 2022 regular meeting. However, upon in-person inspection, the vehicle was found to be below standards and the purchase was canceled. City staff have continued to research used fire trucks to fill the need for a second pumper in service and reduce wear on the ladder truck. Recently, motor pool and fire department personnel identified a 2001 Pierce Enforcer for auction in Mukwonago, Wisconsin, that would suit this purpose, and an in-person inspection confirmed the ready-to-serve condition of the vehicle. Given the timely nature of the auction purchase and the nearly $10,000 savings from the purchase authorized in November of 2022, the city manager authorized the emergency purchase of the 2001 Pierce Enforcer in compliance with Section 2-504 of the Marquette City Code. Fiscal effect: the FY 2022-23 motor pool capital outlay budget contains sufficient funds for this purchase. Recommendation: approve the emergency purchase of a 2001 Pierce Enforcer pumper truck from the Mukwonago Fire Department through the Wisconsin Surplus online auction in the amount not to exceed $38,695. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, do we have a motion on this item? Commissioner Hanley?
I move that we approve the emergency purchase of a 2001 Pierce Enforcer pumper truck from the Mukwonago Fire Department through the Wisconsin Surplus online auction in the amount not to exceed $38,695.
Thank you. And do we have a second for that? Commissioner Stonehouse?
Your Honor, I would second, I do second this motion with the full understanding that while this is not a permanent solution to the city, it is a good temporary one that will get us through a rough patch until we can look at buying a brand new truck.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanley?
I'm just thankful that we were able to find another used truck that fit our needs, and I'm happy that we get to keep the ladder truck off the road a little more so we don't have to replace that very, very expensive truck anytime soon.
Commissioner Stonehouse, anything further?
Only to commend the staff for their good work in finding the opportunity that we're trying to explore tonight.
Anything else from the commission? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That brings us to our last new business item, which is the resolution establishing early voting location. City Clerk, if you could give us the background.
Thank you, Mayor. By approving Proposal 22-2 in November of 2022, Michigan voters amended the state constitution to implement early voting across the state of Michigan. Under the new constitutional provisions, counties and local municipalities will work together during every statewide election to provide at least 72 hours of early voting to all registered voters in Michigan. While the recent changes don't require early voting options be made available during smaller local and countywide elections, municipalities still have the ability to offer early voting. The plan in the city of Marquette is to offer early voting during all elections, though the scope of the hours may be reduced during local elections. In preparation for the statewide rollout of early voting for the 2024 presidential primary election, the state of Michigan is conducting an early voting pilot in a handful of Michigan communities this November and has offered to include the city of Marquette. Staff has determined this opportunity would provide a good training environment for election administrators as well as precinct workers. This will allow for an early hands-on experience with completely new state processes during a slower and easier to manage election cycle. Additionally, the City of Marquette's early voting pilot site will provide a chance for neighboring election officials to observe the new protocols and processes being employed by the state. Per state election law, the legislative body in each municipality shall provide a suitable polling place for each precinct located in the municipality for use on Election Day and shall provide a suitable early voting site for each precinct in the municipality for each election at which the municipality conducts early voting. Staff has determined that the Peter White Public Library, which is centrally located and accessible and which meets all polling location requirements established by state law, would make an excellent location for an early voting precinct. Fiscal effect: none by this action. Recommendation: approve the resolution establishing the Peter White Public Library as a City of Marquette polling location and an early voting precinct for all registered voters of the City of Marquette. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, do we have a motion on this item? Commissioner Smith?
I move that we approve the resolution establishing the Peter White Public Library as a City of Marquette polling location and an early voting precinct for all registered voters of the City of Marquette.
Thank you. And do we have a second for that? Commissioner Ottaway?
Second.
Commissioner Smith?
As we discussed last week in our budget hearing, I think the access to voting is great, and obviously we're complying with the law. I think it's a good thing. There are some expenses for doing this, and we'll talk about that, ongoing in the budget. But I'm hopeful that at some point in the future, the state could help us pick up some of that bill. Thank you.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Nothing other than this seems like a great opportunity and one that we'd be foolish to pass on.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? I'm sorry. Clerk, if you could give us a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Larson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. All right. With that, that brings us to our second public comment session of the evening. Again, public comment may not exceed 3 minutes per person, and please clearly state your name and physical address if you have not already done so, and approach the center podium. Thank you.
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic. This will be a potpourri of comments that events have occurred recently. First of all, I want to thank the Marquette City Police Department and the Marquette City Manager. I was in the St. Vincent de Paul store in Ishpeming last week in response to their request for donations, and they were pumping in the local radio station, and I heard my first ever public service announcement about the state law requiring all dogs who weren't in fenced yards to be out on leashes. And it may sound like a small item, but it is not. As the word gets out, people will generally respond better to these types of reminders, and I want to thank the people responsible for doing this. As I mentioned, I was at the St. Vincent de Paul Society in Ishpeming, which happened to be one of my mother's favorite stores to shop in. The need for food and money to purchase additional food at this location is desperate this week. I know you saw the articles on the news. The shelves are basically bare. And my understanding of how the bridge cards work is that they're loaded up on the 1st of the month, which isn't until Friday. So I'd like to encourage people, if you're in Ishpeming, go to Ishpeming. If you'd rather donate locally, the need is dire this week. As I said, and I don't mean to be flippant at all, people don't just get hungry at Thanksgiving, Christmas, or New Year's, or Easter. They get hungry all year round, and this is a bad, bad week. Also, for the Parks and Recreation Committee, I attended the last meeting, and there were 2 items on the topic that I'm encouraging people to come to the September 18th meeting for, and I would like, if possible, to have a representative of the police department join us for that meeting. There was a general discussion of the use of Far South Beach as an off-leash dog park where dogs were located on the beach and in the water running off-leash. And the general consensus was that this was happening. And I have no personal knowledge of it, but I've heard it from a number of different people. And then the committee said, no, it shouldn't happen like that. And they were assured that it was. So I'm encouraging people to come and make it known what the actual rules are. And also, there's a need for many different inputs onto our trail system in the city of Marquette because we have many different users. I've come to the conclusion one of the first things we need to recommend is a speed limit, just a basic speed limit on those trails. I don't care what vehicle you're running. I actually saw some cross-country skiers practicing there. They were going down the road in a flying wedge, 3 and then 2 and then 2 and then a coach, and anybody in their way would have had to dive for cover. So I'm hoping, again, the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting is on September 18th, and I'm requesting, if possible, an officer can attend to address the issue of South Beach and the off-leash dog situation there. And again, I thank the city for paying attention to off-leash dogs. Thank you very much.
Anyone else for public comment?
Angela Rayhorn, 1025 2nd Street. I read an article recently that reminded me I haven't come for a while to talk about pedestrian safety, and so here I am. It was an NPR. It was talking about how, I don't want to say any facts, talking about how pedestrian deaths are on the rise. Over the past decade, 2022 is the deadliest year since 1981. And how I think about it for our community is just thinking about what we can do to make our city that we, have tons of festivals and tourists and bring people here, have it safe for everyone. And then of course, selfishly for the people who live here, 2nd Street's right by 3rd Street. My kids get themselves places all the time. 3rd Street is notoriously awful in vehicle or bike or foot traffic. It's just hard to see. So one thing I think about is crosswalks, because those are designated to make it safer for pedestrians to get around the city. I think, speaking of public service announcements, making sure the community knows that Marquette's adopted the Uniform Traffic Code, that you are supposed to yield to pedestrians in a crosswalk, within a crosswalk. I've traveled around a few different places in Michigan and seen how different cities, I guess, not label, but draw attention to their crosswalks. Well, actually, one town I went to didn't have any painted crosswalks in their little downtown, which is fine. I'm glad we do. One city had like 2 yield to pedestrian signs on each side of the street and in the middle, and it visually narrows the street so that cars just think about slowing down. Like when the street's narrower, cars naturally slow down. Those are some really cost-effective ways. I liked how Heather brought up volunteer organizations. If there's like funding or lack of people that can repaint the really faded crosswalk signs, we could look into that. I just think it's really important because it's about safety for everyone. I especially think of vulnerable road users, children, the elderly. And then again, just to talk about 3rd Street selfishly, because it's right by where we live, you often have to step into the street to even be able to see if cars are coming. And once you do that, technically, people should slow down and stop for you, which doesn't happen. I just think there needs to be more awareness, more clarification on the laws that the city has adopted, the Uniform Traffic Code, and those are my thoughts for today. Thank you, and thank you for all you do.
Anyone else for public comment? Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. That brings us to comments from the commission. I'm going to start things off with Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Thank you. First of all, welcome all of you Northern students, and congratulations on the first day of class. This was probably a good commission meeting to come to because it's probably one of our shortest. Sometimes they're 2 or 3 hours long. Ms. Brown asked us to talk about our relationship with Northern, and I will tell you that my second half of my master's degree is from Northern. I also taught grant writing in the public administration department for several years. I'm hoping that some of you, those of you that were 18 in November, voted last year, and if you did, you voted on a proposal that passed and was when you saw part of it go into effect tonight as we adopted the resolution for early voting. If you did not vote and are not registered, right to your right is a woman with a League of Women Voters shirt on, and you might want to have a discussion with her. One of the questions that was asked, and I really did appreciate those of you who brought some issues before us, was how we define our role. And our role as commissioners is defined in our charter. And above everything, we are supposed to be representing the community. So each one of us gets a lot of feedback and questions from the community, even as we go about our everyday lives. We also hire our city manager and fire her if we need to, and we hire and fire our our city attorney, which is sitting right next to her. That's one of the, otherwise our city manager is in charge of the city. The other thing that we do is we oversee the budget. And so that's another primary role. And if I forgot something, I'm sure one of our other commissioners will bring us up to date on that. Leah, I'm glad you are using our skate park, and I'm even more impressed that you're concerned about litter in that area. I don't know what happened to the trash cans, but I think our city manager could probably address that, and could probably address, not that she's responsible for picking it up, and also she could probably address the question about water quality better than I would. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. I think Commissioner Pro Tem Davis covered most of it. I will go over connection with NMU. I've taken a couple classes at NMU. I was there today for Fall Fest. Were any of you there? It was for my day job. And I guess I see NMU as a hub of cultural activity, athletic activity, and most importantly, academic activity within our city. So it does provide a lot of enrichment opportunities to people who aren't necessarily even going to college there at this point in time. So I love the intersection of kind of college students and the regular civilians, and how we can all work together to have a place that we all enjoy being in. I think that Pro Tem Davis covered almost all the questions. Minutes/bills payable was one that I heard. Do we ever vote? No, I mean, certainly we could. Often if we have an issue, every Friday morning before a commission meeting happens, 3 of us commissioners meet with the city manager and review in detail what's going to happen. So if we need to make an adjustment at that point, and that is completely, allowable for 3 of us to meet. 4 of us cannot meet because that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So 3 of us meet, we review everything. If there are issues, we can adjust or pull something from the agenda, but certainly that could also happen in a meeting. Myself, if I've had a question about minutes or the bills payable, we get the packet on Friday. I will often, email or call the city manager and we address that issue. If we need to correct something live in the meeting, we can make an adjustment. Like you saw tonight when we amended the agenda to add the voting item, we can do those things as needed, but what we try to do is have as an efficient of a business meeting as possible. Obviously, there are some items that require some good discussion, but we try to do that for, to be professional and to kind of keep things moving along because there's quite a lot of business. This was a short agenda. There's times that this goes down. It's like hundreds of pages, the supplemental packet that we have. So just to answer that question a little bit. The only other thing was the water quality and the skate park question. I'm just looking for a nod from our city manager that maybe she can address those. Thank you to the students for being here and for the rest of the public as well. That's all I have.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Well, my list winnows down as we go past commissioner and commissioner, so, Mr. Mayor, you may have nothing by the time we get there. I did appreciate the comment from Commissioner Smith. This is probably the shortest agenda we've had this year. And more typically, it's 2 to 3 hours. A lot of that is grinding. In other words, going through the processes. You have to go through the process to assure that you're doing the people's work the best you can. Beer Fest is coming up. Bring some joy in all of our lives, but be here 9 September. And if you think about it, being a brewmaster, being a brewery owner, being a developer, being someone who's involved in that industry is probably the ultimate small business entrepreneur. So there's much value in it. And I think, again, hopefully people will be adult about how they behave, or maybe not adult, let's say responsible to how they behave. But it is a great event for Marquette and has in fact supplanted graduation weekend in terms of a economic boost to the city of Marquette. I was quite surprised when one of the hoteliers mentioned that to me last year, that is now the big event in the city. So cultures change or directions change a little bit. Lastly, let me leave with a question perhaps that the chief can answer, if not now, before the manager is finished. It's a little confusing to my way of thinking, the law as it applies to the crosswalks and the marking of them and what you can do where and how. It seems to be different interpretations of it, and I know the chief can walk that through so we understand exactly what the law is, what the pedestrian is responsible for, and what the driver is responsible for. Other than that, thank you for being here. I hope to see you throughout the rest of the season. Your Honor.
Commissioner Hanley or Chief Grimm? I don't know which way I'm going with that.
In the rules that we have, the UTC there, the vehicle must yield to a pedestrian within the crosswalk. The pedestrian, if they got a foot into the crosswalk, or if they're in the painted crosswalk, the vehicle must yield to them. Otherwise, the pedestrian yields to the vehicle. That's probably the best I can do with that one.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanley?
Perfect. I would like to echo what the rest of the commissioners said. Thank you all for coming to this meeting. My connection at NMU, I was a student there and I was on ASNMU, the student government, for a year, as well as the chair of the assembly. You guys got to see a thing from the BZA today where you can see that there's a lot of other commission or committees there that you can be on. They're all listed on our website. There's art commissions. There's all of them that do different things. And if you're a registered voter in the city of Marquette, which you all should be, you can also join those and become part of the city process. A lot of the stuff that we do has been vetted by all of our committees before it gets to us, vetted by our staff, and we're the final touch. Those are the committees where the work actually gets done, where they do the hard stuff, where they make the plans and things. And so you get to see it from the start to the finish, which is very interesting. I definitely suggest it. Other than that, I would like to say one more thing about school starts, not just for Northern, but next week we start for our young students, and don't forget to stop for school buses. It is the thing every year, and there are far too many people who like to ignore that. So I want to just put that out there. If there is a stop sign in a school bus, stop. Don't go around.
Commissioner Larson.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Certainly appreciate my connection with NMU. As I've got my Master's of Public Administration from NMU, and prior to that, a degree in public relations. And so, I think serving, with local government is kind of where the rubber, where we actually get work done. You can see what happens in your local communities, and I'm really pleased that that you're here to kind of learn about that process. As other commissioners have said, there's other boards to be members of. I've previously served on the Planning Commission and BZA, and now this is just kind of trying to do a little tour of all these boards and being on there. So I feel blessed to be on this committee here as well, on the commission. I think it's important that as students that you're involved in the community, and as Commissioner Hanley said, that if there's an opportunity to get involved, that you really should consider stepping up and doing so, as you will likely be here for the next 4 or 5 years in some cases. So I appreciate that. One more thing that I wanted to say was, just in my commissioner comments, is that I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. Is that this last week we had our budgeting, and we in those discussions we talked about Planning Commission having some sort of stipend that's associated with it. I think in future budgets, something that we could think about is having the BZA have some sort of stipend that goes along with that, being a constitutionally required committee that we're required to have. Maybe there's some room in the budget in future budgeting years or whenever to be considered on that. So that was the other item that I wanted to bring up.
Commissioner Ottaway.
It's no fun going last. I don't get to answer any of your questions, really. My connection to NMU, I graduated from NMU in 2007. I was a student and an employee there. I worked not only for Housing and Residence Life, but I also worked at the old Jamrich Hall, which was way more fun than the new Jamrich Hall. None of you guys remember that because I'm just old at this point. But I was lucky enough also to speak in Professor Brum's classroom last year. I found that to be a very great experience. Hopefully she'll invite me again this year. And I guess what I would just leave you guys with is, if you have any interest at all in the ongoings and happenings of the city of Marquette, and just want to be a part of the community, get on the city website, see what is available from a committee standpoint. If you're interested in any of that, feel free to reach out to me or any of the other commissioners, or even ask your professor. She's a great resource because she knows a lot about what's going on here. The other thing you can do is kind of keep a tab on what is happening at these meetings, the city commission meetings, which is, the highest level of city government. What we do here is obviously important, but as the other commissioners have kind of said, some of this stuff has already kind of taken place at a lot of the other meetings that are happening from our subcommittees. But if you see something that is on an agenda, posted, the week before the meeting, and you find it to be something that you might be interested in, show up, come ask questions. You guys all got up to the podium today. It was great to see. But honestly, this is an inviting environment, and we encourage you to be here. I don't really have anything else other than that because you guys kind of stole my thunder, but I will say big thank you to the all parties involved that put on the Harbor Fest, as well as basically it was kind of nice to see a little bit of a police presence there, as well, just kind of once again walking and biking and doing things safely on the perimeter. It's always great to have that safe feel of the police, and also just a welcoming partner of the police where they're not necessarily looking to bust somebody for something that we would all have questions with, I guess. But I think it goes to be said in our community, we've had numerous festivals. Things are you know, kind of winding down at the end of the year. We have the beer fest, as we know, but year after year, we do have a really good festival atmosphere in the city of Marquette, but we keep it safe. And I have to say that for a town of our size, with the amount of festivals we have, I get comments all the time with how safe people feel at the festivals, and I think that goes a long way with our public safety and things like that. So those people should be commended, as well as the organizers of all those events. So thank you.
Well, I don't think I have too much else I could really add input on. My connection with NMU, I graduated from NMU in August of 2020, so almost exactly 3 years ago now, with a bachelor's in public administration. I was in ASNMU as well for 3 years, 2 of it as president, and shout out to Hunt Hall. Other than that, I'm going to kick it over to our city manager, Karen Kovacs.
Thank you. A couple things I wanted to touch on before I answer some of those questions. Community office hours is a really informal, kind of casual way to come and have a cup of coffee with myself and some of the city staff and a few of the commissioners that do attend. But it's just a very informal way to have a conversation about some things that are maybe questions around the community, or some great thank yous have come out of recent meetings. This last meeting had so many good things and so many things to celebrate, along with some other issues that were brought to our attention at these types of things where we reach out into the community and get out there. The next one is scheduled for September 13th from 10 a.m. to noon. We are also scheduling an after hours event as well for those evening hours. So I'm trying to work with many schedules, and that one's going to be announced very soon. Again, just trying to keep it very casual and get out there and have some conversations. I will be prepared specifically, though, to discuss any of the budgets that the community would like to talk about or go over. That was covered at the recent budget conference with the City Commission. So if you do have some questions, let me know on those. And then to get in some of those questions, first I'll start with the water quality report, or water quality question. The water quality report is published every, I would say, spring for the previous calendar year, and that can be found on the city's website. But I also have emailed Margaret a link to that too, and a copy of that if you can share that with your students. That does go through some required testing and information that we are required to provide per the state, but also has some other interesting stuff too. I will refer you, though, to Mark O'Neill, who is in charge of the water filtration plant and wastewater treatment plant, and he can probably answer some of those questions if there's something specific that you feel has changed with our water quality. We certainly want to hear from you on that one. And also, Mark is just a great wealth of knowledge, and if you do want, you can also request some sort of tour too if you're interested in how that really works. In regards to the skate park, I have reached out to city staff already, and they're not aware of any issues, so thank you for reporting that. If you don't mind, you can swing on up here and I'll grab some contact information, and once I have an answer on that, hopefully by tomorrow, I can get back to you. The community members are ears and eyes out there, and without somebody reaching out and saying, hey, there's no trash can, or it's missing, or it needs a trash can, we don't really know. So thank you for letting us know on that. And am I missing any of those other questions? Did I get all of those? Wonderful. I do just want to touch on the relationship with Northern as a city, and that is something that I have found is an incredible asset here to our entire community. They do provide quite a bit of great services, and all of you as students who make our community really something great. You certainly serve us in some of those jobs. You provide us some really great ideas and feedback, so I can't say thank you enough, but I think every day that we have this relationship with Northern, we are setting ourselves up for a very successful future as a community. Northern is part of our community. They provide a lot of our residents. They're also the future as well for many of these positions here, but also for anything big that will happen within the city. So I can't say enough and how much of a great experience this has been in a community that has a university, especially to the caliber that Northern is. So with that, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, and we are adjourned at 6:49 p.m.